We go on appointments and we sit down with people and we advise them on many different areas of their finances. And for those of us who are fully licensed, there's a lot of different things that we can do to help someone when we go into the field. So when I was younger, I just needed a way to the fear of the unknown is what causes so much anxiety. And so when I was a new advisor, I'd always be thinking like, what if this person has a lot of money and I don't know what to do? And what if they ask me questions and I don't know the answer? And so I started to kind of organize my thoughts, and I realized that every appointment falls into 4 categories in terms of where the person works, and that's how you can prepare yourself for the conversations that you are going to be having. So what I did, and really this wasn't for a training, this was, and we post all the slides, by the way, to the Telegram chat, right? So you'll have all this. But yeah, take a picture if you want. What was I saying?
4 categories.
Yeah, so 4 categories, and what I really made this for myself. So what I would do is if I'm training Shondell, she says, hey, I have an appointment with my neighbor, right? I would say, where does your neighbor work? Now, if the neighbor worked for a typical corporation, like if you work for Amazon, if you work for Facebook, if you work for Walmart, that is a corporate job, and it came with a certain set of conversations that I knew that I would have to have. If someone said, well, I am military or federal government, then I would prepare those conversations based on the products that I know that they have. If someone works for the state or the county, the school system, those are things that I'd be talking about. And then if someone ran their own business or worked for themselves, then I would prepare those conversations, right? So let's talk about these different things. I'm going to go over them quickly as well. When someone has a corporate job, typically what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how most likely they have group insurance. So for our newer agents, when you sit down with someone and they say, I have insurance through my job, that is not sufficient insurance. Why? Because it goes up over time. You can't take it with you if you leave your job, and it only pays out on an active status, which means that if you're hurt, if you're injured, if you're away from work for a period of time, they're not going to pay that life insurance policy, right? So what I would do is if someone said, yeah, this person works here, and I knew I'd be approaching a client that had a corporate job, I would kind of refresh my conversations on group life insurance and how to overcome that so someone buys a private policy. Now, when you work for a corporate job, typically what's going to be offered to you is a 401k. So we'll be talking about how their 401k is allocated. If they have an old 401k, what's the match on the 401k that they're getting? And then is the Roth going to be available to them? Right? So there's a lot of things I know I'm not going to have to talk about because these are the things I'm going to talk about with someone that has a corporate job. Federal government, we know what? Their life insurance is called FEGLI, Federal Employee Group Life Insurance. We know what? This goes up. The most you can get is 5 times your income, and it goes up every 5 years. At some point, it starts to double every 5 years. Their retirement plan is called a thrift savings plan. So there's a couple conversations I can have about that. Then I know that they get a pension. For every year that they work, they get 1% of their income. So if you work for 30 years, you get 30% of your income for life when you retire. And it's, I think back and I'm like, man, I just put this all in one little box. I used to read manuals this big from my dad when he worked at the EPA. I would study those to get this type of information. And now I'm just putting it up here, and that's why you guys are benefiting from training, coming to training. If you work for the state or for the county, now it's not called a 401k, it's called a 403b. A lot of times they don't match. Most teachers that I sit down with, there's no match in their 403b because they get a state pension and then they have available to them some type of group life insurance. So when you work for a company, you have group life insurance here, right? Whether it's the federal government, the state, corporate, you have group life insurance. We want them to get private life insurance. One of my new recruits, he asked me yesterday, he's like, what if someone already has a policy? I've always said this, if you introduce me to someone who already has a policy, I'm more excited than someone who doesn't have a policy. When someone has a policy, guess what? I know that they believe in it, and they can afford it, and they've kept it. That's right, because a lot of times when someone doesn't have it, there may be a reason, right? If there's a medical issue, or they can't afford it, or they don't believe in it, and these are hurdles that we have to overcome. And a couple of those you can't even overcome. When someone is self-employed, what's exciting about that is that usually that's a clean slate. They have to get their own benefits. So if they went out there and they got their own life insurance, chances are what? I could probably compete with that, because what are the chances that they have the right amount of insurance for the right amount of time, the right kind of policy from the right person at the right price? Low statistical probability that they did it all right. Some people do, but it's not likely. Now, their retirement account, what's good about this is that because it's not tied to an employer, I know that I'm going to be able to move it if I can show them a better investment. If I sit down with someone, it happens all the time, where they have 800 grand in their 401k, there's nothing I can do with that if they still work there. But if you're self-employed and you have 800 grand in some type of self-employment plan or IRA, I know that I can move that under my management, and I want to do that because I will do a better job than wherever it is right now. So this is how you kind of organize your thoughts when you go in. Now,